Critical Role Recap Season 2, Episode 16. This week's episode, we started off with them in the secret magical testing facility, and the shadowy, robed, cloaked figure had just kind of apparated from the ground. And so he said something about giving him secrets or trading secrets for secrets kind of thing. And then Jester said something about how the sweets are made with cinnamon in Nicodranus, but not made with cinnamon here. And then he was like, all right, never mind, and just kind of attacked them. He summoned out 4 will-o-wisps from the nearby pots that were inside of these metal cages all around the room, and started using some of his psychic evil attacks on them to try and stun them and paralyze them and do damage. The fight went pretty smoothly overall. A lot of them were still a little low on health from just the traps in the previous fights, so they're a little beat up, and Jester did end up getting knocked unconscious briefly, but was pulled back up pretty much right away. But they managed to take out the ghost, and then also dealt with the pots pretty much simultaneously, destroying the pots, which killed the will-o-wisps, as in their previous encounters with them. But then the figure came back out from the nearby bookcase, much like the will-o-wisps had continued to come from the urns until they destroyed the urns. He floated back up into the ceiling, kind of to hide for his turn, though, because they had beat the shit out of him, and he was trying to hide when Yasha managed to land the killing blow as he tried to escape initially. So they pulled down the bookcase, and inside found a giant urn that they ascertained he had come from. His ashes were in there. And Molly stepped forward and managed to kind of snake his arm through the small slots and tear apart and break apart the urn with his swords. So after they dealt with that, they had killed everything in the facility and fully uncovered everything, not greased herself up and slipped through the hole in the wall, and started to open up the boxes, both of which were trapped with poison. She inhaled the first trap, but used her mage hand to open the other ones so that she didn't take too much damage. They found mostly just kind of odds and ends, like some ancient pottery, which would sell for a lot and they could bring back, and then also some rings and jewelry and that sort of stuff. Bo also found what appeared to be a spell book, which she gave over to Caleb. And so Caleb then later in the episode bought some more scribe equipment from Pumat Sol, 200 gold worth of it, to learn some new spells and add to his repertoire from that book. Caleb also identified the sword, the decorative sword that they had found, well, the sword that was placed as decoration that they had found in this facility, and discovered it was a magical sword, this very big wide blade, kind of like Cloud's weapon from FF7, honestly, really big, kind of anime, they even called it. But it's capable of dispelling magical effects, both when attacking with it as well as just kind of invoking it in general. So she could dispel positive magic effects from enemies and negative ones from friends, or even possibly dispel trapped inanimate objects and stuff like that as well. So it should be super useful. They definitely need some form of dispel, as they don't have any yet. They decided to try and hide the sword and as well as the spell book from the gentleman when they came back with all the stuff. So when they did get back there, they did manage to conceal that they had it, but they handed over everything else, like the old urns and the jewelry, and as well as the research notes that Caleb had found. He also offered to allow them to keep the rings that they had brought. The gentleman then dispatched 2 of his guys to go try and clear their names and absolve them of the murder, informed them that Dolan's buddy was safely on his way. The gentleman just kind of dismissed them afterwards and said, if you need me, you know where to find me, and if I need you, I'll find you. Matt then told them basically that the next week would kind of be sped by, so that they wouldn't be going into a terrible amount of detail for the next few days, that there wasn't anything particularly pressing. He was kind of trying to fast forward the timeline a little bit. So he asked them what they wanted to do during that week. So Caleb went and bought the supplies, not sent a package off with buttons and the doorknob and some rings, and also 50 gold, sent that off. Bo went to the Cobalt Soul and did a little bit more training with Dairon, with her advisor. Molly and Bo finally pulled out the fungus that they had bought, the skein, and went ahead and doped themselves up And apparently what it did is it allowed them for an hour to see into the ethereal plane. But there are negative effects that both happen when you first consume them, which could just cause you to be stunned for that entire hour, and then after you use it as well, that apparently I think can make you like just pass out completely. Ford had another one of his dreams in which he was told again to consume by the eye. So he went ahead and swallowed his whole sword. When he did that, when he brought it forth later when he woke up, his old falchion and the crick sword had kind of melded together in appearance. It still retained the aspects of the crick sword, but it looked more like his old falchion with slight modifications to it. So he still has the crick sword technically, but it looks more like the falchion again now, the original one that he had. Caleb, Nott, and Jester decided to open up their haversack again and look into the dodecahedron. Through the process of like kind of going through it mentally, was granted a fragment of probability, I think it was called. Basically, it essentially gives them one luck. Like they can re-roll any roll and choose which roll they want to take. They can. It seems like they can also make an opponent re-roll a hit roll also. And so they can do that once a day, and it lasts for 8 hours, and anyone can do it. So basically, they have a portable luck granting object that they could have with them. And so one person in the party should have that one luck roll pretty much any time for once a day. Other than that, they're basically just getting ready for the festival that's coming up. And so next episode should be quite a bit of character development, but also maybe some combat, some festive combat, competition going on. And we'll see where Matt is taking the story next. Because right now, Zadash is kind of, they've kind of put a close on that chapter. For the most part, it seems like they've done what they came to do. And maybe it's about time for them to move on to a different city. But we'll see where that takes up next week. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week.